There are two processes that you could take to be a teacher in the United States. One of them is through an exchange program where you are given what we call a J1 visa, which is an exchange visa, so that you can come and experience and teach different places, and then you can go back. I got to know of another one called the...
So now we are done with documents. These are the documents that you need. So now let's go to the application process. How does it work?
All right, so at the time I was doing the exams and doing the evaluations and everything, I thought that was the hard part. The hard part was applying the jobs, because I remember the application process has close to 36 requirements that you have to fulfill. That is from the bio all the way to the last part.
How expensive is this whole process?
The upwards of, before you get out of Kenya, it's the upwards of 600.
600,000?
Yeah.
Kenyan shillings?
Yes. That includes the flight.
Okay, now let's leave alone the flight. Maybe I don't need you to break down like the real figures. Where do you need money?
I think more from the evaluation.
Evaluation?
The exam.
Exam.
The visa.
The visa. So up to that point, let's leave it like up to that point. So if you are approved for the visa, so up to the visa, like how much do you think like somebody can have?
150 to 200.
150,000 Kenyan shillings to 200. What are these sources like? If somebody has a gadget, I want to start applying, how do I go about it?
All right, so you go to Google and you search school districts in the specific state that you're interested in.
Dennis, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me in the show.
You're welcome, and we are going to start by asking you maybe, Dennis, somebody has clicked this video. Why do you think they should sit and listen to us for the entire period of time? What are they going to learn from this video?
They are going to learn about the motivation of rising above the odds, from being a lab technician to teaching abroad. I think that is where they could really take their time to watch the video.
Wow, that will be an interesting thing to learn about, and I'm excited to also learn all that in this conversation.
Thank you.
So Dennis, what are you doing in the United States?
All right, right now I'm teaching. I'm a teacher of science and engineering in Arundel County in Maryland.
Okay, you are a teacher, you came in as a teacher. You are from like a foreign, from a foreign country, and you are teaching in schools in the United States.
Yes, so my journey starts from Kisii.
Oh, good.
I'm born in Kisii town.
Okay.
Actually, not Kisii town. I'm born in Kisii, Riesomba village.
That is in Kenya.
That is in Kenya. I was raised there. My first time going to the city, I was actually going to college in Juja, that is JKUAT. And I was admitted to take analytical chemistry, which is a course I did for 4 years.
Okay.
And graduated somewhere in 2016. And then it never really hit my head that I was ever planning to be a teacher at any given time.
Okay, so before you go to all that story, so taking you back a little bit to your undergraduate, you came in as an undergraduate. You are not thinking of becoming a teacher before. What did you do in your undergraduate? Like in a snapshot, like you can talk about a little bit of your undergraduate. I know you are going to talk about how you can switch careers and how you can move like to different careers and how you can be successful in those careers. But you can talk a little bit of your undergraduate, and you did something to do with analytical chemistry, but right now you are a teacher. So talk a little bit of your undergraduate and how you came to switch to doing teaching.
All right, thank you. It has been a journey because starting, I joined JKUAT to take a Bachelor of Science in Analytical Chemistry. At the time, I visioned myself working in industry and doing all these nice drug discoveries, doing quality control. Actually, I remember in high school when we had a speaker who talked about what he was doing in analytical chemistry and industrial chemistry. In college, I really got interested in doing that. So I liked doing the chemistry.
Okay.
And I was like, this is what I have to do. And when I joined JQuat, I was in my first year and the second year, I was taken aback because it was more of content based rather than what I really visioned to do.
Okay.
And I was not really sure whether I was still passionate about learning that.
All right.
So I pursued, I did some research. Actually, my undergraduate research, I was trying to discover some phytochemicals from a plant that I had been assigned by one of my lecturers back then.
Okay.
And I was working on the phytochemicals that were active against bed bugs. And I remember back then in college, bed bugs was something that sometimes could ravage the comrades.
Yeah.
So looking at trying to solve that problem from the scientific point of it, I really invested my time in that until when I graduated, and my lecturer actually told me you can come back and continue the same research, though
For a master's.
For a master's.
Okay.
But at the time, there was another mix of things that was happening around my life, and things didn't go as per the plan. At that time, as I was graduating, actually the same day, I lost my. I was burying my dad on the same day.
Sorry about that.
And then that meant that whatever I wanted to do was taking a different turn, because now I had a sick mom who I needed to take care of without a job. And I needed to find a way to survive.
So you didn't go for the master's?
I didn't go for the master's because all the odds were really saying that this was a good vision, but the time was not right.
Okay.
So I had to step back and think of what I needed to do. And that is the time when I got to learn of a school that was hiring for a lab technician. So I was looking at getting a stable income for that time that could help me survive, rather than being maybe working on stipend that could maybe sometimes not be there in a month. So I went back and
so to pause a little bit, like you finished your undergraduate, you've gotten an offer for master's, but because of the situation, the life situation now, you said you're not going for the master's, you are going for a lab tech, high school lab tech.
Yes.
Do you think somebody who has done a bachelor's degree in analytical chemistry going to work as a lab tech, what were you thinking?
Okay, honestly, at the time I could do it quietly. I didn't want to tell my friends what I was planning to do.
Okay.
Because it didn't look like a very good plan. So initially I was not like really quitting from pursuing the master's then. It was simply keeping my eye on the vision, but changing how I will get there. So I needed means of survival, and I needed to be able to have something to pay my bills and get to support everything that I could do. Remember, I just lost my parent who was also the one really supporting everything. And at the time, also my mom was still very sick, and that meant that I needed to find a way of surviving.
Yeah, sure.
And when she passed on after 6 months of burying my dad, then I was like, okay, I may not really go to work in a single room in a science department with only a people of sound. And
had you taken the job?
I had not taken the job yet, so I was in the application process
of getting.
It was a lengthy one because they were doing it like, I think it took me. They did like 3 interviews. So at some point I was like, maybe I will never get that job. So I'd forgotten about it.
Okay.
And then shortly after like a month of burying my mom, then I get a call like, oh, we're speaking to you and we're glad you were able to really impress our interviewers. And we'd like to have you come back for another one. And hopefully this will be the last one. So that is how I went back. And luckily they hired me.
For the lab tech?
For the lab tech, but I could not tell anyone. Because I'm an analytical chemist, and initially working in a lab with a professor actually working on a research, and then now you're going back to high school to work as a lab technician. That was not something I wanted to mention, but I was proud of it because I was like, finally I'm getting to do something I still like, even though in a different setting.
And you're earning money.
And I'm earning something. Yeah.
Hey, so like I don't think most people think of that. I never thought of going to do anything in high school, like because I had not trained as a teacher. I never thought of, because I'm also my undergraduate training is in the science field. It never crossed my mind to go and do anything as a lab tech.
Let me take you back a while. I used to, during the long breaks we could have in college, I used to go teach in some schools as an untrained teacher. I was doing it, but it never occurred to me that at one given time I will be doing that as something that I really like and something I'm passionate about. And so to say that I really never knew what I was getting into when I was going into college, because it was only from one speaker. I didn't have that exposure.
Oh yeah.
And my vision and thinking of going to college and doing the course was different from what I encountered, because I thought I would be working in big industries, big machines. Remember the village boy from the village?
Yeah.
So that was the mentality that I approached it. And I knew I was very good in sciences and very good in chemistry. But then it never occurred to me that I will get to a point where I will have to apply that into solving problems. And that was not coming.
You were thinking of Pfizer.
I was thinking of Pfizer, these nice
GSK companies.
And then here comes, in my third year, I'm trying to get in an internship. Actually, not internship, it's more of like an attachment, what we call the industrial practicum. And when I tried applying, I couldn't get it. So I asked myself, if they cannot give me one thing that I'm looking for that is even free, how sure am I that once I graduate, I can be able to get into something? Because I was ideally volunteering to learn by just being attached to a given. So I applied to a number of them and I never got it.
Okay, so let's go back to your job. Like, you've gotten this job. Now tell us what happened.
All right, so I got the job. I worked in, it was a startup school that was really giving a different approach to education. And I'm proud to say that it really formed who I am today. It transformed the way I viewed life. And speaking that, at the time I was really dealing with some personal things in life and handling all the loss of loved ones at that time. I remember looking at the way the classroom was being approached, which is something that I never experienced in my whole life in school. I never really got to see that there could be another different way of teaching approaches, and where you get to see kids really engaged and doing some good things. And I got the chance of, because I was a lab technician, so I could set up experiments for science, which is math, that would be chemistry, biology and physics. And then I could go around all those sciences classes as they're going on and observe the teachers doing them. And that gave me the opportunity to observe and learn. So every time I could step in and sit back at the back of the class, I was like, what is stopping me from doing this?
So the passion for being a teacher started?
The passion started. But now I was waiting for the opportunity, the right time. So I knew I was to go back to school, but there was one problem. I am not a trained teacher. And I need to get that. So the employer used to have teacher professional developments. As a lab technician, I was not required to be there, but I will always be there.
So how you are not a trained, you did not train as a lab tech, but you are a lab tech.
I'm a lab tech.
And you are not required to be there. So now you had to go now to become qualified so that you can be there, or you wanted to go and start training to be a teacher?
If you want to learn something, you don't run away from it. You go hang out with those who know how to do it. So I had to go sit in, get to listen to the trainings, go through all those trainings, classroom expectations, inquiry-based teaching, handling student grievances, and all those things, and classroom expectations. By the time I was finishing my 4th month, I was already clear of what I wanted to do.
The 4th month in the job?
Yes. Okay. I already had a clear mind of, this is what I want to do. And I have to make the steps towards that. And again, going back to some of the events that had happened when my my dad passed on. He was really okay. We chatted the previous night and he was fine. And then the following morning, he was not there. So at the back of my mind, I was like, oh, so life can actually change in a short while. So before you go, you need to leave a mark.
Yeah.
And that the whole thing really told me, how do you leave your legacy? Because you have a very short time that you need to work with, and you never know. So I started doing things like tomorrow is not mine. And that is when I said, okay, I have a chance. I will learn how to be a teacher by seeing it being done. And I remember a colleague who was really very instrumental in my mentorship. He could sometimes tell me, okay, I'll stay back and let you do the class. And I remember we were talking about inquiry-based teaching. So most of the time I could start the lesson and post the question and have the students do the talking. And then because I have a science background and I know some much of the information that they need to know, I could go around answering the questions. And then that was it.
That's how you started becoming a teacher.
Yes.
You had not gone to train in school, but you're already becoming a teacher.
Yes, and also using from my untrained teaching experiences while I was still in college. So every piece was falling in place, and I knew that this is what I needed to do. Like a calling is already being made. This is likely to be the area which I'll make my legacy.
How many months into the lab tech job was this?
I remember because I joined in March. By around June, even from the management, they were already thinking that this gentleman
can be a good teacher. Wow, that is great. That was your life had started taking like a different path. Now you had started to forget about GSK and Pfizer and all those pharma companies.
Yeah.
So then, how do you go from there and become a teacher? Because you are not yet a teacher.
Yes.
How did you become a teacher?
So one of my colleagues again was going for a paternity leave, and for paternity leaves like 2 weeks, and it was not practical to hire somebody to come and be in school for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So they approached me to shadow and more like be an apprentice and just do within those 2 weeks. Because they had already done the background checks, they already have my records in their files and everything, and I have the qualification to be an untrained teacher, which is an apprentice. So I was given the class for 2 weeks when the colleague was out. And during that process, I think we used to have walkthroughs and observations, just get to give feedback to the teachers as they're teaching and handling the students. So in that process, I remember top management and a few other school owners at the time walked in during my class, and I remember them saying that you're doing a good job. And then later my principal then was like, I didn't even tell them that you are simply
you're not yet
a teacher, you're only holding up for someone. So he asked me the question, have you ever been interested to be a teacher? I told him yes. And then I said, in fact, actually, I've been teaching. It's just that I need to go back and get certified. So he told me we can give you that offer, provided you go back and get trained.
So the principal did not know. There's nobody who knew that your colleague was letting you teach some classes?
Okay, he didn't know because he was not like really letting me teach all the classes.
Okay.
He just gave me like a few minutes, the start of the lesson or maybe part of the experiments. Actually, most of it was like, I remember dissecting close to 24 rabbits. I think that was like the 3rd week into the role. And that was a big thing because I was the one leading and I had it really organized.
Yeah.
And sometimes when someone sees what you can do, then sometimes it's easier for them to actually propose your name to some higher place.
Dissecting rabbits in high schools, then it means how did you train? You are an analytical chemist.
Yeah, so I was an analytical chemist, but then you see, a scientist is always a scientist. The curiosity always drives you. So it was a biology lesson, so I was not the one doing it, but I was like helping the students do it. So the organization for me was more set up the lab, then have the teacher do it.
Okay.
And then as the teacher is doing it, you go to observe. So fast forward, I went back to school.
Yeah, so we had reached there. Go on.
I went back to school, 2018. I went back and enrolled for a part-time postgraduate diploma in education, that is PhD. It's something that I remember mentioning to a few of my classmates. There was someone really close, like, what are you doing now? They said, oh, no, I'm a lab tech, but I'm going back to school. And what are you going to study? I'm going to do a postgraduate in chemistry and physics. They were like, oh, are you sure this is what you really want? I said, yeah, this is what I want. And after being in class for those few weeks that I was allowed to teach, I discovered that there was more into teaching than what we actually knew. Like being a teacher, you don't just get born a good teacher. No,
it's not a calling. It's not just a calling.
It's okay. There is that part of a calling, but part of it you need to be willing to learn.
Yeah.
And for me, the role of mentorship and getting the support from colleagues and being given those opportunities to take the risks was really a good thing. So I was able to study. It took me 1 year to finish that program. It was not easy at the time because I was also expecting, we were expecting to have our firstborn then, I think.
Oh, good.
So I was balancing all these roles, and then we always believe like things will always be better tomorrow. So I went back, and once I got my graduation, that was just precisely 1 year because I finished with 1 year. Then I was officially
a teacher.
A teacher.
So were you still holding like the position of a lab tech?
So at the time now I moved from being an apprentice. Apprentice more like still playing the two roles of a teacher and a lab tech at the same time. So I was confirmed as a teacher. Now I was a resident teacher. A resident teacher meant that I'm no longer an apprentice, but now I'm a full-time classroom teacher.
And that's how now you became a teacher.
That is officially how. Okay, I was a teacher already, but that is how I continued to be a teacher.
To be a teacher.
Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting because I never thought of. I did not think of switching careers. And you feel that this is something that is so important. I know we'll talk about switch, but do you think it was a good thing for you to switch careers?
All right, it was. I can call it like. It was the golden opportunity to switch the career because not because I could not secure the job, but I didn't really know because I never did any internships in terms of getting to be, or I never really got to learn what it took to be an analytical chemist and what it meant to work in a lab. Because I remember working in one of the pharmaceuticals, I think I was lucky to get one, but I never really...
That job?
I never stayed there more than a day because the experience of working in a small, tiny room with a machine is something that was never in my mind. As much as I knew I was going to work with machines, but I never really thought that it could be maybe one person and working with all these samples.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole time.
I kindly ask one favor to support me by hitting that subscribe button. It truly means the world to me. So now you are a teacher. You've gotten into the teaching profession.
Yeah.
And right now you are a teacher in the United States.
Yeah.
How did you learn about these opportunities in the United States?
All right. So one of the things that happened to me when I started being a teacher was like I got to learn that teachers have to be constantly learning. And you have to constantly update your knowledge and your experiences to better serve your students. So during that time, because I started off in a school that was an international school, let me not say international school, but it had majority of my colleagues had come from various parts of the world, and I got to get interested in getting the exposure and getting to interact with various cultures and different diversities. So at the time, I used to hear that some teachers could go teaching in the United States. So I asked a relative about whether he had heard of that process and maybe what it entails. So my uncle actually, who is the one who got for me the information, linked me to a friend who had taught in the United States through a similar program. And he had been here, I think, for more than 20 years. So he told me that at the time he was coming, he was brought on a work visa. And he has now fully settled in the United States and he's working here and he's still in the education system. So he told me I needed to start the process. So I was curious. I told him, okay, tell me what it takes.
So that is how it was. Like, you were curious and like you did not see the information maybe in a poster or somebody advertising for the position. You were curious about it and you asked. And you got the information.
And then I got the information. And then at the same time, now because there was that idea that has been mentioned that there is a possibility that teachers could actually go teaching in the United States, I started digging up the internet because the internet has got all these resources.
Yeah, okay.
So I went to YouTube, I started checking, and then at the same time, I was actually interviewing I'd applied to teach in Australia. And I remember I started the process with them. And I was doing all these meetings and trainings for certification. But their process was really lengthy. And I had obtained that link just from my network. Someone had shared with me and said, oh, they are looking for some teachers in Australia. If you're interested, you can apply. So I applied. But I didn't know of anyone who had gone to Australia as a teacher.
Okay.
But I know they take teachers right now, and maybe some other countries is the same. So I was having the United States on one side and Australia on the other side. All I knew is I needed to move out and teach in another country to see how different it is. Because at the time, I was teaching in a school where we could get students also from these other parts. I remember there is a student who told me he was from Australia.
In your school?
In my school.
Okay.
And that was like my very last station before I moved here. So they told me I was from Australia, and he told me all these nice things about how their classrooms were all set up and everything. So I was curious. So besides teaching in an international school back home, I was like, okay, let me go and see. Maybe there is some differences.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I felt the need to move because I wanted to explore and get to experience different cultures.
Oh, good. Yeah. So you've learned about now these opportunities. They're there in Australia, in the United States. Now let's go to what everybody asks.
The process.
What does it take me to be there? Dennis, please tell me. I want to know how to come to the United States as a teacher. Now it's today. Tell us how to come to the United States.
All right, so the two processes that you could take to be a teacher in the United States. One of them is through an exchange program where you are given what we call a J1 visa, which is an exchange visa, so that you can come and experience and teach different places, and then you can go back. You can go back home after a period of like maybe 5 years, so that you can go and more of like impart the skills that you learned here. So I got to know of another one called the H1B visa. Now they call it by the United States, it's normally classified as the specialty worker visa, which is H1B is more of like a dual intent. A dual intent in the sense that you can come and teach after the period is over. They can possibly extend it and even give you a permanent residence, but it's normally not assured like you will.
Not guaranteed.
Not guaranteed, but it's a dual intent, so they don't have the mandatory return like you should go back home after the period is over. So those are the two programs. Now each of them has got different needs that you have to meet before you can come here. The one that both of them share is that you must be able to evaluate your academic credentials. You have to be able to convert them from the Kenyan certificate, or let's say your degree has to be given an equivalence to what you will have in the United States.
Okay.
So
that is your undergraduate degree?
Your undergraduate degree or your postgraduate, because for me now at the time I had undergraduate and then I had the postgraduate for education.
Okay.
So they had to do an evaluation for both of them. So for both processes, for J1 and H1, you have to evaluate your academic credentials. So you must be able to have at least a 3.0 or 3.0 GPA and above to at least be able to be eligible. So once you have that evaluation done, now you move into the next step. If you are applying for the exchange visa, then you go straight into applying for the jobs. So you start, there are agencies that support the exchange program visa. There are a number of them. And possibly maybe you will be able to share the link for those who will be interested at some point, that they can be able to review that. So there are so many of them right now. And there are two versions of them. There is those that charge a fee, there are those that are free.
Okay, so wait a little bit. We've got two ways. We've got the J1
and the H1B.
And the H1B. So both of them will share like the same evaluation, like you have to do.
Yeah.
So now the difference comes in. For the J1, you'll need to work with an agent.
You need to work with an agent who most of the time they refer to as sponsor.
A sponsor, okay.
So the sponsor may not really sponsor your program, your application process, but they are the ones who will process your immigration documents. Your they call it the service. I think there is a form that they're normally given. All that. So I will not really go much in the details of the J1 because I didn't use it.
You did not. And you talked about for J1 you do application.
Yes, you do application, which is most of the time you apply to those agencies. They have various links. It's more of like the normal job application process that you do. It's just that it's a bit lengthy, so you have to be patient. Okay. And you have to provide what they need, and most of the time they will need you to also upload reference and what we call verification of experiences from your previous workstations and everything. You also need to have a minimum of 2 years teaching experience. You will also be required to at least have a passport, because now if you have to move out of the country, that is one of the first requirements.
Yeah.
And then the other thing they will also need you to have is a driving license. You should be able to demonstrate that you can actually drive. Yes.
Now you've left, you don't want us to go. You did not use the J1. Now let's go to what you use.
The H1B.
Yes.
Now for the H1B, now that it's considered a specialty visa, they need you to demonstrate that you have the ability to do that job in that category of the visa that they will be giving you. So one of the things you have to do after you've done your evaluation and you have your 3.0 GPA is you have to take what we call a practice. A practice is a registration exam which all teachers in the United States have to take and pass before you are able to be certified as a teacher.
So now you have everything you have shown. You have the special, like let's say I have demonstrated I'm a teacher, registered in my country, my evaluations, I'm good, I've passed everything.
Yeah.
So the next thing is practice.
Yes.
That is an exam, like
that's an exam.
So now what do you do in the practice?
So we have two exams that you have to take. One is for the content area, which is the subject that you teach. So for my case, I did chemistry because that is the area I was teaching. And then we have what we call, in Kenya, it's like the educational units, which is Principles of Teaching and Learning. They're abbreviated as PLT. So Principles of Teaching and Learning, you have to take that one. It tests on the education theories, the philosophies, student management and all that. It's more of like the educational unit part of it. So the way it happened is the connection that I had been given by my uncle now was working with me. He actually was the one who helped me to register. And that is why I always say that normally we have people really are destiny makers for generations. Like when you help one family, you help everyone.
Yeah.
So he was the one who helped me to know how to go online and get to register for that exam. And once I registered for the exam, now I had to read. So the reading, I had to read it on my own, quietly, after, because again, you don't want to start saying, oh, I'm reading for this exam and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the reason why I kept quiet about it is because I also didn't know whether this was a process that could eventually
will
get
be
me
successful.
anywhere.
Yeah.
And normally it's easier not to explain.
Not to tell. I did a mistake of telling everyone
Yeah,
the
because-
first time that I
yeah.
was getting a scholarship to come, then I was rejected, and
Yeah,
it was a
exactly.
shame.
I will like to talk about how I was rejected also.
Okay.
So I got assisted in registering for those exams, and then I could read. At first, I thought it was a very easy exam, especially the one that I was not teaching more frequently. Chemistry was relatively easier, but for PLT, I missed 1 point, and then I had to go back and do it, and I had to pay the money. That was really discouraging at the time. But because I said, okay, I've done the evaluation, which was also charged, all right.
Do you pay for it?
Yeah, you pay for it.
How do you do the evaluation?
So the evaluation, you get to get your credentials. There are various bodies that do that. They call the nurses bodies for evaluation. So you get to either go take
Say that again, nurses.
Yeah, nurses.
NACES.
NACES.
Okay, so if you go to that
website, yeah,
you'll see bodies that do the evaluation.
That do the evaluation. The one I used is World Education Service, WES.
Okay, WES. Okay,
yeah, that one is more common, but there are quite a number that everyone could make reference to.
How much was it?
At the time I was doing it, it was around $217.
Okay.
Because I remember it was around that amount. And there's also varies depending on what you pick, and also maybe your credentials that you have at the time.
Okay, so let's go back to the exam.
So we go back to the exam. So I missed 1 point. And because at the time I was applying to go to wherever my angle was, because that is where we initially planned to go. So because when you register, the exam is, the passing score varies from state to state. I missed a state score for that, for cancers that I was to go to initially. So
okay,
I had to retake the exam.
There are some questions I want maybe for clarity so that our viewers also can understand this. Like, you wanted to go to Kansas. You had started the H1B visa. How do you first know where the opportunity is? Like, do you have a school in mind before you start doing all this work? Like, had you applied to a school? Okay,
so because whoever had shared with me the information is a teacher, and I'd undergone the same process but years back. So the impression we had is maybe I could be able to go to wherever he was.
So you were doing all these things and you had not known a specific school, and you had not done any application?
No, I had not done any. It's just that I knew that is what I required before I could apply to the jobs. Because you cannot apply before you do the steps.
Get these...
yes.
Because sometimes you start applying and then... Okay, so you are getting the required, the necessary things that are required for the application.
Yeah.
Now for the exam. Where do you do the exam? Because I think for some exams, maybe for nurses, people go in India, South Africa. What about this exam?
All right, so this exam, once you go online on the site where practice.org is normally the site where you register online, you pay online. Everything is normally paid online to that site. And then in the exam center, you get to pick the one you need to go to. And there is only one in Kenya, which is Computer Pride in Nairobi. That one is right in the CBD.
Okay.
Yeah, so once you register online, when you go to the location you want to take the exam, it will always point you to Computer Pride.
Okay.
So that is where I took the exam. And fast forward, so
before we go, how much is the exam?
All right, so the exam varies, because at the time I was doing it, I remember it was around $230 to $400 to $350. I'm speaking in terms of dollars because
that is standard.
That is the standard rate that they use.
Okay.
But the one thing I could advise anyone who wants to do it is you can take an exam at a time instead of combining two of them. So you can register for one exam, you pay, and then you take it. And then once you finish, you register for the other exam, so that you have some time in between to raise the funds, and also to read. Because one of the reasons why I missed the point is because I was told that this exam you need to take, and I said, okay, I can register and take it next week.
All right.
So I took it in 3 weeks, and I forgot that I was also still actively teaching, and it was not easy to balance the schedule and get to really prepare.
Okay, so now let's go back to where we had stopped, where you had failed that one point.
So I failed 1 point because when you apply to a state, normally when the scores are out, it shows whether you passed or failed. So I failed and I had to go back. So this time around, I had to really lead. And I was like, I don't want to disappoint anyone. Because I remember even mentioning to my family at the time that I missed 1 point. I could see that they were really disappointed.
Yeah.
Because they already excited that we know everything you're doing will be eventually something that will all benefit. So I had to do it again. And interestingly, that small 1 point failure taught me something, that patience is key.
Yeah.
And you have to always be patient to know that sometimes it doesn't go your way. And once I did the exam, I started applying for the jobs.
So now you have all the required...
I have all the required documents. I have my evaluation. I have the exam. And I've already passed it. So I started applying.
So that somebody will be clear with the necessary documents that we require, like if you can list them.
All right, so in terms of the documents you need to start the application, one, you will need to have your copies evaluated. That's the first one, because you need to know whether you qualify in terms of the GPA. It should be at least above a 3.0. And once you have that, the next step now is taking the exam. If you're pursuing the H1B program, which is normally given to mainly math and science teachers. So math and science teachers, because of the shortage that we have, actually I came to learn it's not only in the United States, now it's worldwide. Because Australia, Canada, and most of these countries are looking for teachers, including China, including even our neighboring countries, Tanzania, we have Rwanda.
Okay.
I know of colleagues who have gone to teach in some of those places. So those are the things you need. The other thing you will also need to have is maybe the funds.
Okay.
Because I think one of the things that has been really a big limitation to most teachers is the funds, because you need the money to pay for the evaluation. You'll also need the funds to pay for your exam. And then after you finish your exam, if you don't have the passports, like for my case, I didn't have for my kids, I had to start getting them.
Okay.
And then also maybe getting the birth certificates, because they will be required way maybe after you get the job.
Okay. So I kindly ask one favor to support me by hitting that subscribe button. It truly means the world to me. So now we are done with documents. These are the documents that you need. So now let's go to the application process. How does it work?
All right. So at the time I was doing the exams and doing the evaluations and everything, I thought that was the hard part. The hard part was applying the jobs. Because I remember I started applying. The application process has close to 36 requirements that you have to fulfill. That is from the bio all the way to the last part.
36 requirements.
Almost 36.
Okay.
Because I'm referring to the bio and all that kind of thing that you need to have in the application system. The good thing that I discovered with the schools here is more of because they're in districts. When you make one application, you apply more directly to the school district, and then they will always open your profile to the school leaders or the school principals and assistant principals for them to interview you. So I started applying in Kansas, and there was another state.
When you are talking about applications, what are you applying to?
I'm applying for jobs, teaching jobs in the United States of America while I'm still in Kenya.
Okay.
So sometimes I could use what we call the virtual private networks, so that you can be able to have access to some of the sites, because they are blocked to be used only in the United States. But I think most of them have been opened now, because now they are receiving teachers from all over. So some of them are now open. So that was the first step, which is now submitting the applications. So I did fill my profile, applied, and then I did human resource interviews with one of the schools in Kansas. The district, I don't want to give the details about the school district, but then I applied, and then I got interviewed with the human resources. They pre-approved me to go to the next step, which is now being interviewed by the school principals and the school leaders. So at the time, I got to do almost close to 15 interviews, I remember. And then one of the days I was lucky and I received a job offer.
From a school.
From a school.
So when you are doing, like you're saying, you're doing applications, you are going online.
You go online.
You are just like, nobody's telling you like this. You are searching on, what are these sources? Like if somebody has a gadget, I want to start applying. How do I go about it?
All right. So you go to Google and you search school districts in the specific state that you're interested in. So I was interested in Kansas because I knew someone there. So I searched in Kansas schools that are hiring. Then I searched for the school districts. And then I got to go on YouTube as well. There are some good content creators there who have done their very good content on how to apply. So I got to check on this side on YouTube, then I apply on this side on Google. But the process is simple. It's more of like how we apply back home for schools. Then you are scheduled for an interview with the human resource first. Once you finish the human resource, they open you up to the school principals.
Okay. So when you are applying to school districts.
Yes.
And then the school districts, after they interview you, they see that you are good. Then now they open your applications to several schools in that district.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that is why I ended up doing so many interviews. And most of the time, because of the time difference, they would happen at night. So I remember one time waking up and sitting in the kitchen at 2 a.m. trying to do an interview. And at the time, one of my kids was really young at the time. So I remember being in the kitchen, and because of the lights and the talking, you wake up and start crying. What's happening? So that was the process.
So you are done with you got acceptance after 14 interviews?
Yeah, after 14 interviews. Normally the school leaders don't tell you that they are going to hire you because they're not allowed to do that. So they will always tell you, okay, thank you for making your time for us to do an interview. You will hear from our human resources, because they are supposed to only recommend you for hire. So I will advise anyone who would like to apply, please be patient and do not send emails to the school principals like, did you really think I'm a good fit? Are you going to hire me? And all that thing. They don't really hire you. The human resource, which is who are normally based in the head offices, are the one who do the hiring.
Human resource of the school or the district?
The district.
Okay, so it's like the district doing the hiring.
Yes.
Okay.
The school district's work is the one that is in charge of hiring. What the school principals and assistant principals do is more of recommend you for hire. Okay. And then from there the process takes itself. So I got the job. Very excited. That was around I remember it was around May. Yeah. May, June. So I was very excited, and I was even preparing to get the funds needed to. At the time, I didn't have all the passports for my kids, and I didn't want to leave them behind, because for me, family is everything, and it comes fast. I said I will go to wherever I will go with them. Okay. So I started spending some money to ensure all this paperwork is also at par. I had to apply for the birth certificates and everything, and now I asked them, what is the next step? Okay. They told me, okay, we will do some background checks and then we will get back to you and let you know. Then I kept on telling them, but I'm not in the United States, I'm in Kenya, so I will need visa sponsorship. And for me to be able to come there, I will need to be sponsored and to be authorized to work in the United States. So they told me, we'll work around that and we'll let you know. In the process, a month is gone. The second month is here. Then I ask them, okay, how far is the process? Because now I have the job offer. Yeah. And I'm also trying to think of when I need to offer my resignation, because I have never really believed in banging doors. Yeah. I believe in closing them softly so that in case you need to open them again, you come back. You can come back. I actually believe I can go back to my previous employers and I could apply again and they could take me back, because I left in good faith, and I really left everything in order, and it was for career progression. And that is something that I encourage everyone to do, because if you're going to leave a place and you leave everything upside down, then that speaks to the kind of person that you also are. Because if you're a teacher and you deal with students, it's not the same as somebody who works in a mechanic shop.
Yeah.
Because in a mechanic shop, you can wake up one morning and you're gone and they get someone else. But when you're dealing with people's children, you have to take the due process of saying, okay, I'm going to be living in this time frame.
Yeah.
So back to resigning.
Yeah, now 2 months have gone.
2 months have gone. When I asked them, what's the process? Guess what? They tell me, sorry, we have really tried and we just learned that we are not able to proceed forward because you don't have the visa and we are not able to sponsor one at this time. And sorry, we have to rescind you off.
Where do you start now? You had put all your hopes there.
That night I remember getting back to my facilitator who was helping me to do the process. And he was like, also, I really don't know from this point what we can do because this is what I knew. And again, I came here a really long time ago. And the processes have changed. And the people who are doing that now don't know much of how they are going to go through that. That hit me. Remember, you are really excited. You've already obtained this job, and that is now back to why I told you most people don't normally say that these things are going on.
Yeah.
Because when they fail, you have to go back and start explaining to everyone why it failed and why you're not going. So I started asking myself questions. Maybe I was never meant to go.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, why should I continue applying and maybe get a similar response? And then I started asking myself, maybe I should have applied to Australia. Maybe that is where I was meant to go. Why did I stop that process? Because I stopped it immediately. I was given a job offer. I told them, okay, sorry, I may not continue the application process because I've gotten another opportunity at the moment and I may not continue to engage you. So I got really stressed out. And that night I sat down, I took my computer, and then I started searching school districts that sponsor H1B. Because I at least knew what I wanted. I knew I needed the H1B.
Yeah, you had known the process.
Because I've already done the exam, all I need is a district that will sponsor. I said, regardless of where in the United States, I'm willing to go because I want to experience that life and see for myself how things are done.
So you moved out of Kansas?
So I moved out of Kansas. So when I was searching, that is when the current school district that I'm in popped up on that list. And then there was a nice video on YouTube on school district that sponsor H1B. That night, I remember sleeping at 3 a.m. I started the application. This time I didn't even count how many pieces of information I need to provide. That I was certain that I will only go to bed once I have it submitted.
So you did the application in one night?
I did it in one night.
But it's easier now because you had almost all that you needed.
I have all the documents. I actually had really organized them in a very nice way. And now it's simply having that done. But even though you have all the documents, still is a process. Even actually, when you finish and you want to submit, there is another test that you have to do, which has got like close to 40 minutes. They actually even tell you if you don't have enough time, don't do it. I said, no, I have to do it right now.
And is there application fees when you're applying to? So applications are free?
The applications are free.
Okay. Somebody may ask, what is the if I'm sitting down to do the application, but this is a homework that everybody who's curious should go and find out. But what are you doing, filling out in that application?
So in the application, you will fill out your personal information, your teaching experiences, your educational background. It's more of what you have on your resume. You get to fill out all those information. And then you also get to fill out, there is some section where they call it declarations, like, have you ever been involved in this? Have you ever been dismissed? Have you ever done this? So you have to fill that one out. You have to fill the section of references, who will be contacted. And one of the challenges that I faced at the time is because some of my references who had been contacted previously were my current supervisors, and it felt so it felt so weird that I was to go back again and tell them, okay, now again I need you to do another reference. And I didn't want to really make it look so desperate, and I was already I was already working well. I didn't have any problem. The only thing I wanted was like really to try out a new life and explore, because I was still young in the career and I wanted to look at it like where I want to see myself in the next few years. And I needed that exposure, because the moment you moved out of your village, you moved out of your city and went to another place, you never the same again. So I needed that exposure. So back to the application.
The night is gone, 3 a.m.
The night is gone, 3 a.m. And then, boom, the submission is done. And then 2 days, I get an email. Thank you for application. We have received your file and it's under review. 1 more day. Then I get another email. Hi, I'm reaching out because we have a human resource interview coming up. Are you available? I'm like, what? This one is moving so fast. Because the other one had waited for so long. I was like, and wherever, I don't know, this feeling of when you're applying to something, even your brain starts to check out. You start feeling the anxiety. You're waiting. I kept on checking my emails. I remember, kept refreshing and checking, even the spam box, checking whether something has been sent.
Keep refreshing every second.
And checking, that anxiety, like, has something been sent and I've not checked? So I received the email and they're like, we need to do a quick phone interview before we make you available. Not because I had a clear vision of like how things are going to move and already from the previous experience, though I was still having those doubting voices, like, could it go the same way? But I'd already checked that they sponsor, so at least I knew they sponsor, so whatever happens. So
in the previous school you had not checked if
I had not checked because I didn't know, and whoever was doing it had done it so early, they didn't also know that the process have changed. So within a week, my application was already set to the principals and I started doing interviews again. So once it was approved, I sent out my application, then I started interviews. I remember again, I did close to around 7 interviews with different schools. And then on the last one...
So this is the school district
that I am now in.
And it is setting you up now to different interviews in different schools.
In different schools. Because the management of schools here is done a bit different. It's like back home we have the Teacher Service Commission that does the hiring for public schools. It's done similar here, but then it's now done at a district level. In a state, we have various school districts. And these various school districts are the ones that are in charge of hiring of teachers. So I'm not hired to a school, but you're hired to the district. Then they post you to the school that recommended you for hire. So I get the email that I have another 1 more interview. That was meant to be the 8th interview. Then I went back to check my profile. Then I see recommended for hire. When I check back on my email for the interview, the email had been cancelled. Then I'm like, maybe something is cooking. Something is cooking. So I was so excited because it was within 2 weeks from the time I was given they rescinded my previous offer.
From the rejection.
Exactly. That was around July 19, because I remember the following day it was my birthday.
Most people remember dates for rejection.
So on my birthday, I received a call. And then they told me, we are glad to offer you an opportunity, a teaching job in Arando County. Please read the terms, and once you agree with them, you can sign and we can move to the next steps. That was my birthday. I remember those moments because I was just from playing in the field, and actually on the same day I'd hurt my hand. I was playing with students and then I hurt my hand on that day, and then I'm like, wait, I can't even sign the offer letter. But the good news is I have gotten the job. It was an exciting moment for me. I went really quick home and told my sweetheart that I've gotten this job and hopefully things will work out. So I read through the terms and responded really quick, and then he told me, now we will hand you over to another office that is now in charge of the immigration, and the paperwork and everything. So now this was a more seamless process than the one that I had initially encountered with, because they had not done that process. So again, I had to do this process of applying, of uploading the documents and now doing another application to the attorney. Because with the H-1B, once you are offered the job, they have a contracted attorney who will do the paperwork for you.
Okay. So for these ones now, you are sure they are sponsoring?
Yeah, because now I checked online and I saw that they sponsor, so I applied. But the problem was I didn't know anyone in Maryland.
Okay.
So that was another big risk I was taking. I was willing and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Wherever I was initially meant to go is now close to almost 4 hours of flight from where I might end up, but I was still willing to do that. So I started the process, and then within a month's time, I'd received what we call a petition. Petition is a document that is given to the applicant to go with to the embassy. So when you go to the embassy now, you get to do the interview. You will present that document to show that you've been given an approved petition.
Okay.
And then from there, you get to move on to the next step.
Wow, you've gotten the job. Very excited.
Thank you.
Those rejections, I don't like the rejection parts because they make you like, for me, there were so many of them, and the bad thing is with me, I had told everyone, like I told my parents, I told my friends. Now
you have to explain why.
Now you are heartbroken, they are heartbroken, everybody is heartbroken, so you have to explain why. Now let's move to, you've gotten the job. Now how do you go about now the visa?
All right, so the visa now, this was another part that was a bit different, and one of the challenges that I really experienced at the time was like I was working with a very short timeline, because the petition normally takes close to 3 months or 6 months, but they did what we call an expedited process. So that means I got the approval within 15 days, which was a very short time frame, and I also need to work with that. So I booked for interview. That one you have to do it by yourself. You go online, you book for an interview at the embassy. And I had an history of rejections with the embassy because there was a time I wanted to visit and then they rejected me. Another time I was attending a conference, they didn't give me a visa. Interestingly, even I had applied to take a student to Canada at some point while in my first station, and the student was given a visa. I was denied.
So you had histories.
Yeah, I had histories of rejections, and I was like, oh my goodness, hopefully this time they don't deny me one. So I went there, and
so you're just doing normal booking and everything?
Normal booking, everything. You give your reasons why you're booking for the interview and what you're trying to do. So I did all that. Now this time around, the last time I was going there, I was going as a bachelor, but this time now I was working.
You're married?
I was working with my blessings.
Okay.
Yeah. So with my blessings, we all booked online, and then we went. We went, all 4 of us, into that interview room. I remember that place had still its fresh memories of rejections and the cold.
Yeah.
And it was really early in the morning.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting there and thinking through and saying, you know what? If there is any other time I've ever received a rejection, please let it not be today. Because now I've said I'm with my whole blessing here and you want to give me a rejection. But the process was more seamless. Because I remember the only question they were asked, that I was asked was, where are you going? What are you going to do? And what will you do when your visa expires? Or when your term is over, what will you do? And for me, because I knew I was doing this I was willing to explore. I said I will come back home or go to another place that I maybe will be thinking in terms of my career. Because I always look at the future as this puzzle that God gets to open it for us every morning and every day. So I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know that God will get me to wherever place that he feels I need to be. So we went there and they said, congratulations, you're welcome to the United States. And for my family, they said, what's your name? Put your hand there and welcome. So I got the visa.
So they did not ask your wife or your children, like you are the only one who was answering the questions?
Yes, I was the only one answering the questions because when you're given the H-1B, your dependents are given the H-4, which is the version of the other version of the dependent visa.
Okay.
So they were not really asked so many questions because the documents, the paperwork is already done. And again, the H-1B process is a bit different from the other visa categories where you're required to demonstrate
financial
proof and home ties. I think that one is different. And also I get to believe that because they had already spent in the process, and that is taxpayers' money. It's not the same as when you're going to, like, your only reason is to visit. That is different. When you have a proof of that you're going to earn a living and you're not going to be a public charge, or somebody will be depending on the assistance from the government, then it becomes more different and more easier. Yeah.
So I kindly ask one favor to support me by hitting that subscribe button. It truly means the world to me. Now you had gotten the visa, but you're not, like, the documents that you needed for the visa. What are, like, the documents that you provide for you to, like, you don't show financial proof because for F1 students you'll show financial proof, ties back home. Now for these ones, like, which documents do you carry to the visa officer?
So you will go with the petition, the approved petition. They call it the I-7 and 7 form.
Okay, from the attorney.
From the attorney. That is normally sent to you. Then the other thing you'll also need to carry with you is the job offer. You will print out the letter and then you carry it with you. The other thing, of course, you need is your resume, but they don't get to ask that information. The other one is, of course, if you're going with your family, you'll also need to carry their birth certificates or identification documents. I think that is pretty much of what I remember, including now the visa application form that you're required to go with, and maybe some cash, because there is some cash you're normally told to pay. I paid around $2,500. When you're given the visa, they tell you to go to another.
$2,500 US dollars?
No, 2,500 shillings.
Oh, Kenyan shillings. 2,500.
2,500 Kenyan shillings. Because I remember when I was told that congratulations, you have given the visa, they told me to go to another window and pay. They call it the reciprocity fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, marriage certificate?
Yes, if you're going with your spouse, of course, you have to demonstrate that you are married, and you have to go with your marriage certificate, the certificate of your kids, and that is pretty much what you need. Okay,
a curious question. You are in an international school.
Yeah.
There's somebody who's not a teacher there's somebody who's teaching in a school that is not an international school. Is there any requirement that somebody might need to be first in an international school so that you can do this application?
No, not at all.
So you can just be from any normal school, you are a teacher as long as you have the qualification?
Any normal school, provided you have the qualifications, and especially if you are a math science teacher. It's easier for math science teachers because they normally have a big need for math and science teachers, and also English teachers. Those teachers who maybe are interested in teaching elementary school, and they have been teaching elementary school, if you have the qualification, which is the degree. Because I know some colleagues who teach Kiswahili, because Kiswahili is not being offered on this side, or CRE, that is not, mainly religious studies are not offered here. So that means the colleagues who teach those subjects, some of them come in as elementary school teachers. That is, if you've been teaching in an elementary school and you had a degree, you can always come to teach in an elementary school. And one interesting thing I've learned is the pay, unlike in Kenya, the pay here is really dependent on, is the same, whether you're teaching middle school, elementary school, or high school.
So the pay is the same. Not so much different.
It goes with the years of experience that you have and your qualifications, more of.
And are these opportunities like for somebody, you are a high school teacher? What about like somebody who's a primary school teacher?
Yes, for primary school teachers, provided they have a degree. The minimum requirement is that you must be able to have a degree. Okay. So I know in back home most people don't tend to have degrees in primary. A few do. So those who have the degree, the minimum requirement is you must have a degree.
And a 3.0 GPA.
And 3.0 GPA. So if you have the degree and you have that, regardless of where you're teaching, because I know there are colleagues who have done early childhood development, that is ECD, and they have done a degree in that, and they are teaching in elementary school, so they can come here. But they're taking a nursery school, but you have your degree, you can come. The other main requirement is you must be teacher certified in Kenya. You must have a TSC number.
All right, so you have to have.
So you cannot switch a career like I did, because I switched to get and I went back to school to train as a teacher. So I was registered. So you must have your TSC number, you must have your degree, and then you should at least demonstrate that you've been teaching for more than 2 years.
Okay.
Because that experience is really needed. I know people will say, why do I have to go wait for 2 years? It's good that you must gain the experience, because you're going to go direct into the classroom.
Yeah.
And they don't want to start teaching you again how to handle the students.
Yeah, and there's this GPA part where somebody did not get a 3.0. Have you seen like people who did not get a 3.0 but they got to come as teachers?
Okay, I do not know of any specific cases right now, because one thing I know is they will take a different exam, which I think is called the core practice exam. I don't have much information about that, but it's something maybe that I can go check, and then maybe you can share.
All right. So because when you're evaluating these transcripts, for your case, I was thinking maybe somebody can, if you got a lower GPA, you can try to do like the postdoc, whatever. I'm not sure like if it can work, but maybe it can, like you can go and do which one did you do, like the 1 year?
I did the PhD in a postgraduate diploma.
Postgraduate diploma. Okay.
Yeah, because the reason I had to do that was to get the educational units for me to be able to be qualified to be registered as a teacher.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody may be curious also, like the way I'm so curious. How expensive is this whole process?
Okay, that is the other thing.
The amount, now the figures, because we are talking about money.
That is the other thing, because you really have to do some good savings, and also maybe get some good friends or family to support you, because I think it's the upwards of, before you get out of Kenya, it's the upwards of 600.
600,000?
Yeah.
Kenyan shillings?
Yes. That includes the flight.
Okay, now let's leave alone the flight. Maybe I don't need you to break down like the real figures. Where do you need money?
I think more from the evaluation.
Evaluation?
The exam. The visa.
The visa. And so up to that point, let's leave it like up to that point. So if you are approved for the visa, so up to the visa, like how much do you think like somebody can have?
150 to 200.
150,000 Kenyan shillings to 200.
To 200.
But I think...
And again, it varies, because the time I was doing it is different from now. And it might also be, the costs vary from individual to individual, because as much as the evaluation fee is the same, I am meant to understand that there are various nurses bodies, like various agencies. The exam fee is the same. But again, you know, the dollar and versus Kenyan shillings, they keep on changing.
Yeah.
So that is another thing that will also affect how much you'll pay at what time. And then also whether you have all the documents needed, because you have to maybe also factor in the expenses of trying to follow up for certificates and maybe getting your passports. If you didn't have one for your dependents, if you have dependents. But if it's an individual, single person, then it'd be like you need that 250 to 200.
Yeah. So like, but if somebody is, sometimes you don't need to have the whole money.
Yes.
Have the money for the first step.
Yes, that's why I said you can take the exam, one exam at a time.
Yeah.
And actually it's I'm talking of that amount, but it's spread out. You are not required to give it at once. And normally it's very easy once you get the job to try and convince one or two people And again, not to make it a community thing, because if it doesn't work out,
then you're in trouble.
You'll be in trouble. Because again, you'll have to try and explain to everyone why you took the money and then you never left or something. So that is normally the tricky balance. You have to know that, like the job I was given and then it was receded, you have to know that that is likely to happen. And it will be very hard for you to tell someone that you used their money.
Yeah.
And then now you never went somewhere where you were initially saying you were going. That can really affect even your own self-esteem. But one thing I know is that when somebody gets to set their mind to achieve something, you can do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah.
Even if it means like trying to reorganize how you use your funds and everything, or even seeking extra help from family and friends, which is really something that came up for me. And that is what really helped. Yeah.
Now you had gotten the visa. What was your next step? It was to move out.
All right, so my next step was to resign. Yeah, because with the previous experience, I learned that you cannot resign and then you end up being told, sorry.
Yeah.
We are not going to move forward with the application. So I had to give a sufficient notice to my then employer. And then I started working around, ensuring that I had everything ready and planning about how my family will be moving with me and everything. So at the time, I think I felt like everything was moving so fast because I had close to 2 months to avail myself for processing.
Yeah.
And at the same time, remember, I told you now, with the change in plan, I didn't know anyone in Maryland at the time. So I had to make plans and try make a few calls and see whether I could get somebody to really host me.
Yeah.
And something like that. So at the time, I didn't know anyone. But then my uncle now was able to try and make a few phone calls. And then we got someone who sells cars, and it's someone who I could highly recommend for new visitors who come into Maryland. You can always get to stop by his workshop and dealership to get a car. Because I came to buy a car and then he ended up being my host for a few days.
Wow.
Because when I coming, I was planning to maybe get an hotel. But then from him, I got to get a place to stay for a few days and someone to get to take me around to get to know the place and even get to introduce me to a church. And I got actually a new family.
Yeah.
And for me, things got to move from that point.
Okay. So when you're now that you had gotten the visa, what are some of like these? So these the employer doesn't provide you with accommodation or anything.
All right. Now the H-1B visa, unlike the J-1, where you are provided with some agencies normally give you accommodation or somebody to pick you up, depending on which one you're using, because some also will require to make your own arrangements. So the same was happening with the H-1B. You make your own arrangements and get to avail yourself. They can always give you contacts to social services if you need any help. Yeah. So when I arrived here, I left my family with my uncle. Because I had someone here.
All right, so you came alone?
No, I came with my
family.
I came with my family at the same time. I came with my family because I had family here already.
All right.
So I left them in a different state.
Okay.
And then I moved to try and find a place to settle.
By yourself?
Then I bring them.
All right.
Yeah, but then I will advise anyone who is planning to come, unless you have someone, it's good to just maybe, especially if you have young kids, to maybe let them stay for a month and then they will join you once you sort out things like housing.
Okay.
Because when I arrived here, one of the things I discovered is without a credit history, and then applying for jobs was also another process. So you could apply to houses, pay the application fee for background checks and everything, and then you were told to wait. So it took some time.
Okay.
I was lucky to get one within a month, but it's because I had to provide my job offer as confirmation that I will be able to sustain myself, which is something different from how things are done back home, which will also bring me to the next step of saying that it's also good to be really organized, and put your things in order, because if you don't, then it's very easy for the system to filter you out. Because if your funds are not in the correct place, your credit history and all those things are not balanced.
Yeah.
Then even if you were to get more funds in the future and try to get a new house, or maybe move to a new rental, you may not be given a house because of bad history.
You mean here or
here?
Okay, here.
Yes, I mean here.
Okay, so now you've come in. Now let's talk about life. And how is life as a teacher in the United States?
All right, I can say it's challenging sometimes, which is possibly anything that somebody should expect in any place. Whenever you move to a new place, you have to learn. So I can say it has been a sharp learning curve, but challenging in a good way. It's challenging in a good way because in the 1 year and a half that I've been around, I have made new friends. I have connected with the new students, families, school leaders, and actually I'm getting to learn more that I could actually have done when I was back home, which is a very good thing. Because recently I was in one of the workshops that I attended. It's more of like I can call it a seminar, and I got to meet with all these educators, the common interest and thinking about supporting the children in the United States. And from there, I got to mingle with various school leaders, which is a good thing to learn. And I can say that the life in the United States is good. But it's the same, if I could compare it, it's like moving from the village and moving to Nairobi. My first time in Nairobi, it was very new. Even crossing the roads was really hard.
So many cars.
That is in Nairobi, so many cars. So I can liken it to that example. Because I moved there, it was a new environment for me. It was still a learning curve. So when it comes to moving to the United States, it feels more of the same. It's like you're moving to one new place. And now it's a bit different because the food, the diversity is different. It's a new experience. That is how I can put it. But so far, so good. God has been gracious because everything I really hoped to do and get to learn is happening. And I look at it in terms of what I'm doing in the classroom right now with my students, and also getting to look at the goals that I plan to achieve. I can say that I'm working towards that, which is what I envisioned. Because when I was hoping to go and experience a new culture, then I expected that it would be different. So I can say it's a good, challenging environment. Terms of there are all those good things that you could work for, and it's something that I could encourage anyone who wants to explore new cultures, new diversity. It's actually a big place because I've also tried to visit a few places. I've not really gone to so many places again, because when you're trying to settle and fix all these things, it feels a bit overwhelming. But then over time, as you get to learn, interact, and network, you get to start seeing more and more opportunities too.
And now you've got children. They go to school?
Yes, they go to school.
Somebody maybe may, because
so for someone who has family, and one of the reasons why I said it's challenging in a good way is because when you come here with your family, especially if you have school going kids, then you have to make all these arrangements. Unlike home where we had maybe you stay with someone, or you could easily get somebody to babysit for you and all those good things. Here it's more of like you work with your own schedule. with your partner to ensure that you're able to balance all those things. When one is engaged somewhere, you are available.
Okay.
Because again, it's not going to be like home where you have so many people who you could be staying with or maybe ask their support.
Okay.
So if you come with your children here, they can go to school.
Who pays
and
for
the
this?
good thing is it's free.
Okay.
So it's free unless you choose to have your kid go to a private school.
All right.
Yeah, so there is free transportation. They're picked in the morning and dropped back if they are not within the walking distance to the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So you had talked about like you've switched careers in between, like and you're still not yet there. You're still moving. Life is still going on. Talk about somebody who has finished campus and is thinking for a job. Is it worth it to like switch career? Should they like have a broader mind and start focusing on different things that can take them to the same destination but in a different route?
That's a good question. And I will encourage anyone who has just completed college. I get to look at the first degree as the foundation to be anything you like to be. Because let it not be limiting and say that because I did science, I have to end up in a science field. Or because I did arts, I have to continue being in arts. I'm looking at the revolution that is occurring right now with technology and all these good things with artificial intelligence. And I'm looking at what some of the countries are doing. We are shifting the focus from really trying to have more people doing or being forced into doing the things they started with. What I mean by that is this. In the United States, if I wanted to switch into taking a medical career, all they need is me to give them my first degree.
Okay.
And I could really take maybe the exam and get admitted. If I decided that I want to do engineering, they will tell me to give them the first degree, and then I will do the entrance exam, and I will enroll for my course. If I wanted to do nursing, I can simply walk in with my first degree, they give me a few credit transfers, do the entrance exam, and I'm in. Like the first degree should be the foundation. It has demonstrated your ability to learn.
Okay.
And whatever follows after that is purely on how you would like to challenge yourself.
Okay.
Without a challenge, you will always be in the same comfort zone. But when you're willing to step out, actually step out of your village, because now I never at any given time when I was growing up thought that I could end up in the United States, because I was back in the village. I think my dreams were more of, I can say, I knew I was to do something good in life, but I never really saw myself getting to the United States.
All right. And it's the first degree, because I also changed depending on the opportunity that is coming. Sometimes you have to like change, and so you may not have so many options, because I did not have so many options. I had this one option. I was a microbiologist in my undergraduate, but I had an option like the only option that was there is for me to go for nutrition, which is totally different thing. But I had to go for it, and it's really changing my life. And actually, I'm doing what I love right now. So it's good to like take those different a different direction if something is not also working out. You had talked about there are some other countries also that are accepting teachers. You talked of Australia, China. Do you know of some people who have, because somebody may really want to go to the United States, but they may not make it. They are not making it, or they're getting these rejections. Do you have like people who have gone to different countries who you know?
Yes. One thing I've come to appreciate also, especially for those who are still in college or maybe young in the profession, regardless of whether it's teaching or anything, it's networking. And the good thing is that technology has actually made everything very easy for us. The internet right now, I think even when I was back at home, we could enjoy a very strong connection. You could actually do anything from your house, even back in the village. So for me, what I could say is anyone who wants to explore any of these countries, the information is as simple as simply searching on Google, like jobs in this place. We have various platforms that are hiring that. So I already know of colleagues who worked in various places, just that I cannot disclose their names. But I know of those who have gone to those countries that I mentioned. And again, I could encourage anyone who is really interested in growing professionally, whether it's in teaching or any other career, engineering, medicine, or anything, to always challenge themselves to explore other countries. And not only speaking about like the United States or these other big countries that we all aspire to, even as close as in Tanzania.
Okay.
Because I have colleagues whom we work with who are currently working in Tanzania. And one thing that I've learned is when you go out and get to be exposed to all these different cultures and get your brain and mindset really challenged with the new ways of doing things, and you're willing to learn. When you get back home, you will not do the same things.
Yeah.
You will not do things the same way. And even if you were to do the same things, probably it will be in a different capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is one thing I'll encourage everyone to do. So these opportunities are available. There are so many groups. And also just to mention that you also have people who are scamming others. So one thing I always say, if it's not asking me for any money to give me a job, besides those who steal identity, most of the time if it's free and you can confirm that you know someone who is already there, network with them and ask them the process. And once you know the process and where you need to start, then you hit the road running.
Wow, great discussion. Any other things like do people reach out to you?
Yes, I actually, just like I said, wherever you go to a new place, it's always challenging because you have to settle down. You have to also get to learn around what's happening.
Yeah.
And just get to have your starting point. So I have people who have reached out. Actually, I know of close to 3 who I have given the information. And when I arrived here, because of the busy schedule, they let me share some piece of information. So I crafted a document, I think, that I've seen that has been making rounds about how to teach in the United States.
Okay.
That gives that information, because information is power.
Yeah.
And when we share, if someone can be able to get, even if getting the win that someone is going to teach here, it's always good to also get to start from that point. So what I've done is I formed a forum where I had a few teachers who had started the process, but then it became a bit unsustainable. But I have something planned in the future to try and have that more active. But I've already gotten to know a few of other agencies that are really supporting teachers, so I'll always try and recommend them to get to apply there. And also get to recommend them to some nicely done YouTube content about where to apply to and how to do it. Because once you know how and to get started, then that is the first step.
Great.
Yeah.
There is something that it's good to clear it, like to talk about it. And I always insist, like these gadgets, this technology, like right now we are connected. Google search one night like gave you this job in 2 weeks. In 1 week, was it in 1 week you had a job because you did a Google search? So it's important like to use this technology to try and see if you can get these opportunities abroad. So what are like your closing remarks, or something that you feel somebody needs to know about this whole process of coming as a teacher?
All right, thank you. So for me, the one thing that I would wish someone to know is that if you have the desire to make a change, it doesn't really limit you to doing it in one place. The world is now one unified village, and we are free to move and teach in places that you never thought you could be. But once you start the process and you have the passion and you're willing to learn. I remember when you asked me how the experience has been, I said challenging because I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
And I look at myself and say that if I'm absorbing all this learning, within maybe the next 2 to 3 years or 5 years, I don't know where I will be, but I know I will be in a greater height than I have been this year. And that is something that I encourage anyone to ever think of doing, because once you are able to move out of your comfort zone, which is your village or your town or your country,
Yeah.
and you dare abroad, as one of my favorite presenters has said before, then it's never going to be the same. You have started a new challenge, which you have to run a race. And for me, I say that legacy is not born, but you build it with the time that you have every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was nice having this conversation. And viewer, thank you very much for staying up to this time. All the links and documents or whatever that he said that we'll need that will direct you to links, I'll link them down below, and I'll link some of his profiles where you can try to reach him out, or the forums that he has started, and you can do networking, and it's going to be helpful to you. Thank you very much, Dennis, for coming.
Thank you.
All the best in your career and your next phase of life.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So I kindly ask one favor to support me by hitting that subscribe button. It truly means the world to me.